A few weeks ago, I preached a message on living your ordinary well. It was one of my favorite sermons I've preached. Sometimes you just have favorites. And that was one of them for me, and I think it's because for me, you can have all the God encounters here, but if it doesn't translate to your home, to your family, to your coworkers, to your everyday life, to your ordinary life, then there's a disconnect. What happens here should affect your ordinary, right? And so if you weren't here, you can find that on our YouTube channel. But right after I preached it, the Lord just dropped into my heart that I needed to address an area that is very strongly keeps us from living our ordinary well. And that thing is worry. Oh, I hear a How many of you would say in your natural personhood, you are a worrier? Wow, that hand flew right up. I am a worrier. And we have people pointing pens at each other. Okay, pointing fingers at each other. Okay. How many of you would say it's not just you, but you come from a family of worriers? Yeah. I come from a family of worriers. My grandmother was a worrier. My mother, heaven forbid, and sometimes my dad watches this, so he'll probably report it, but she'll come to us, listen to what I heard on the Today Show. Now, she's not a worrier like my grandmother, but I've got a lot of family that worry. And I married a person that is not a worrier. I don't think any of your family are worriers either. And so I find it interesting, in Petersburg, we had one couple that were both worriers. And I feel like usually it's one or the other, because the Lord knows we need that balance. And so as I was praying through this was so strong that there are some of you, and we can laugh and chuckle about it, but there are some of you that worry suffocates you. It is a suffocating thing, to the point that it can become a stronghold in your life. And this is not the life that Jesus wants for you or for I. And so I'm going to just briefly read this, and then I want to dive into the call of Jesus for us today that's going to help you. In Matthew chapter 6, so you can turn there, Matthew 6, and many of you will be familiar with this. And I find this an interesting passage because to me this is not a suggestive passage, it is a command passage. And in verse 25, Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life." Well, what do you do with that command when you are a worrier? Do not worry about your life. What you'll eat, drink, your body, what you'll wear, is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not that much more valuable than they? And here's the question, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Has worrying about your situation ever changed it for the good? I would say mostly no. And why do you worry about clothes? Look at the flowers of the field. They don't labor or spin, yet I tell you that not even Solomon, King Solomon, in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If this is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow thrown in the fire, how much more will he clothe you? Oh, and then check this out. you of little faith. Ouch. You of little faith. He doesn't pull any punches often, Jesus, does he? He gets to the heart and the core of a matter. So, he says, do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things. This is the way of our world. But your heavenly Father knows that you need them. So seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these will be given to you as well. Therefore, another command here, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. What I'm calling us to is not a life of perfection, a life of no problems. Jesus here even acknowledged each day has trouble enough of its own. But what I'm calling us is to, in the midst of the trouble, to rise up and grow in faith to the point that worry, whatever family you come from, whatever your natural man person is, your flesh person is, worry has no place. And so this morning, I want us to go to Matthew 11, for this is the call of Jesus. This is what, as I was praying through, this is what the Lord said, this is the call to the people today. Because there are some of you that need to hear and respond to this call. Matthew 11:27. And it says this, all things have been committed to me by my Father. So all authority, all glory was given to Jesus by the Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. And then we get to the heart of this that we all have heard. Come to me, you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. He doesn't say, I may give you rest, I might give you rest. He commits. He says, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, before we jump into this, let's talk a moment about the context, because really what he's referring to is your salvation. Because the law of the Old Testament was burdensome. The law of the Old Testament produced death. And Jesus himself would say to the Pharisees and the lawyers, he would say, woe to you that heap burdens on men, and you yourselves don't keep them, but you keep putting more and more burden on the men and the women. Why? Why does Jesus make this call? He's saying, I am releasing you. In me. The work that Jesus did was the fulfillment of the law, and he is releasing them from this tiresome burden of trying to fulfill a law that they never could, that they just failed and failed and failed. Hence, sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. And that's a wearisome thing. And so the primary context here is salvation. Not just the laws they were trying to fulfill, but your sin is a yoke of slavery, isn't it? Your sin will wear you down. Your sin will destroy and be a heavy burden. And Jesus is saying, I've come to free you of that. This is the rest of which he speaks of. And so this is the context, really. But it carries over because we know that salvation affects every part of our life, doesn't it? Every part of it. And we have this accuser, this enemy, who is the accuser of the brethren, who loves to come and whisper to you and try to put more burdens upon you, layer after layer. Hey, what about this? Look at how you failed. Look at what you did. Look at what you did or didn't do. What is that? Burden till you're weighed down. And Jesus, he makes the call. Come if you're weary. Come if you're burdened. We live in this broken world. Come if you're weary. Come if you're burdened. I will give you rest. And so if you think about this word worry, worry is a verb. It is an action word. Everybody say action word. When you are worrying, it is an action. I cannot walk and jog at the same time. If I am worrying, I cannot stand in the place of faith as well. It's an action word that is consuming me. And so what I want to do today is to break down Matthew 11 and say, for this worry, this word, action word that we lay down at the altar, we're going to take up 4 more action words, okay? So today, 4 action words to replace worry. The first one is the call of Jesus, come. Today we sang, I think the other way, for Jesus to come in. But here we have the word come to you and I to come to him. It takes action to come to Jesus. This is where it is not just a belief system I adhere to. That doesn't require action. I am coming to Jesus. It requires action. When I am in the state of worrying, when it's, you know how it is, you lay down and you finally, the distractions of the day have ended. The things that you have given yourself to distract yourself from the worry have ended, and now it is nighttime, and everything is quiet, and the worry starts. Anybody ever been there in the middle of the night, or you wake up with your heart pounding in anxiety over the things you're worrying about? Worry is kind of like the clicking pen that you hear right now. It just keeps going and going and going and going. I know I made the mistake of ordering clicky pens for the church. But that's what worry is like. It will forever torment you. It will keep after you in the dark places of night, suffocating. And when you're busy worrying, I can pretty much guarantee you're having trouble coming to Jesus. You've come to worry instead. And so the call to come. What this Jesus is really calling us to is relationship. Come to me. He doesn't say come to a religion, come to a church. He says come to me. And if we look at the previous verse, what we see is this relationship of the Son knowing the Father and the Father knowing the Son. And through Jesus the Son, the Father is revealed and we are invited in to this relationship. Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life. There's no other way to the Father except through the Son. And we have been invited in to that relationship. So come, he says. Come to me. This was the thing that in my growing up years in the Catholic Church I missed. I didn't get that. I didn't realize that the invitation was to a relationship. Of knowing my Savior, of not just talking and praying to him, but hearing him talk back to me, right? Of receiving all of the beautiful gifts that he wants to give to me. It is relationship, and worry will stifle and kill relationship. Come to me. To me, and we talked about this in the Living Your Ordinary Well, the back to Eden relationship of being able to walk in the garden with God again. We're no longer banned. You know, he kicked them, he banned them from the Garden of Eden. They could no longer come in to that place of communion and fellowship. And the call that Jesus gives is back to that place. Come to me. It doesn't matter that you're weary. It doesn't matter that you're burdened. I'm not afraid of your weariness. Your burdensome things don't bother me or worry me. Just get them and come to me. That's good news. So your first action word is to come. Your second action word is to take. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke." Take my yoke upon you. Now, a yoke, how many of you know what a yoke is with animals, right? Like if you have a pair of oxen, they are yoked together with that wooden bar across them, and they cannot do anything independently. Everything that they do is tied to the other animal. And to be yoked to something, if you look that up, it's actually to be oppressed under something. And we think of that in the negative, to be oppressed, right? It usually means you've been dealt with harshly or abused. But in Jesus' case, when we come under the yoke of his authority, this is the true place of peace. I think the worry comes when we are disconnecting ourselves from the yoke of Jesus. Because where Jesus walks, we follow because we're yoked to him. There's no other option for us. But where Jesus goes, I go. What Jesus does, I do. And you know, they often will put two animals together, one being older and more mature, used to being yoked, and a younger one that has yet to learn the ways of the yoke. Because that older one knows how it's done. The older one knows this, to come under the yoke, this is what it means. And I'll just say this, you will be yoked to something. You will be yoked. You say, well, I'm not ready to be yoked to Jesus. I want to be free. I'm saying you will be yoked to something. You will be yoked to your worry, to your fears, to your anxiety, to your sin, to the ways of this world, or you'll be yoked to Jesus. And we can try all of these other ways, and what we find in the end is there's only one yoke that gives peace. There's only one yoke that will give rest, and that is the yoke of Jesus. This really is about lordship. This really is about allowing Jesus as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords to have authority over our lives, to be under his authority. And in our Western mindset, this is hard for us sometimes. Well, I want to be my own person. I don't want to be under anybody's authority. But there's something different about being under Jesus's. When we come under Jesus's, we come into wholeness. We come into healing. We come into fulfilling the purpose that we were created for, which is the greatest blessing. To be yoked to something, to be yoked to Jesus. And so we've got to come, we've got to take the yoke, and then your third action word is to learn. Jesus said this. He said, take my yoke and do what? Learn from me. So really what this picture is what in Jesus' day would be the rabbi and his followers, the rabbi and his disciples. And so in that day, to have which Jesus was often called rabbi teacher, in that day the rabbis would have around them a gathering of people that they discipled. And you would have to come under that rabbi's teaching and learn from them. And so what Jesus is saying is simply that. I want you to come under and learn my ways. Learn from me. We often, and you know around here we believe in the supernatural. You know we believe for healing and provision. Darren and I have experienced numerous supernatural provisions. He's been healed. So we believe in all of that. But there's also this aspect of the heart of God, I think, that is, I don't want to just keep rescuing you supernaturally. I want you to learn my supernatural ways. And actually, I think it's interesting that the word supernatural is not a word you find in the Bible. What you find is extraordinary. Extraordinary. And so it's you saying, I'm bringing my ordinary life and I'm trying to live it really well from you, Jesus. And when I do that, now I've stepped into living an extraordinary life. And that happens when we learn the ways of Jesus. And I love it. It says, I'm gentle and humble in heart. He is not a harsh taskmaster. He is not a harsh teacher. He is gentle. He is humble. And the key here is that it says you will find rest. You will finally, in that place, all striving ends, all worry ends, and you find the rest. And so learning in Jeremiah chapter 6, I love this passage in verse 16. This passage is found in the chapter when Israel is under siege and things are not going well. It is not the ideal life that they are living. And God says, stand at the crossroads and look. We have a choice of how we're going to live. Worry-free. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Listen, Darren just preached that he is the same yesterday, today, forever. He is unchanging. And so the same God that we serve and worship today is the same one in the day of Jeremiah. He is unchanging. He is the ancient pathway. And when we yoke ourselves to Jesus, we are yoking ourselves to the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it. How often in our worrying do we stop and just ask, Lord, what is the good way here? What is the path that I need to walk in? And then to actually stop and listen. This is the problem with worrying, is that we're so occupied with worrying, our ears cannot hear what God is trying to speak to us. I think it was interesting. I was listening to a podcast, Cageless Birds, which is a ministry of worship lead, the Helsers, Jonathan and Melissa. And they were talking about they had a hurricane blow through suddenly that came swiftly and fast. And they'd been living in the house they had built for 15 years. And when it was all said and done, they went out to look the damage, and they went to a side of the house that they don't usually go to. All of the siding had been all the wall had been stripped off. And what it had revealed is that there was in the floorboards, it was a 2-story, it had been rotting in there. And they didn't know it. And they sent pictures to the builder, and the builder says, "I'm coming right now." Listen, the hard things sometimes, the storms that he sometimes lets you walk in, is not always negative, is not always bad. And this is the key point of coming to him, not because you're suddenly going to have a perfect life, but you're going to learn. He's going to speak, he's going to reveal truth to you of your life. He's going to reveal where the foundations are weak. He's going to reveal what needs shored up. He's going to reveal the rotting places in your life, maybe the rotting attitudes, whatever, because, sometimes we have those. I'm assuming you're not talking about your wife or kids or anything like that right there. Okay. In the storm, they began to thank God for this hurricane that came through and tore off the side of their house. They had children. What if that rotting they'd never discovered? This is the learning. Jesus showing us the areas of our life. This is the way. Walk in it. This attitude is not going to serve you well. This behavior is not going to serve you well. This is the learning of Jesus. And as we learn and as we grow, as we're yoked to him, the greater rest that we find, the greater peace that we walk in, because we're doing it his way and not our way. So learn, come and learn, Jesus said. And then our fourth word is find. You will find rest for your soul. It's interesting, if you read on, the next chapter refers to the Sabbath rest that Jesus gives. But in Hebrews chapter 4, I love this passage because some people, your just natural person is more of a person that is rest. You can enter into that. You don't have trouble. Some of us, this is harder to enter into, the place of rest, personality-wise. And in Hebrews chapter 4, it says, "There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works." I got to do these things in order to please this God. No, that's not what this is about, is it? That was the work that Jesus did. Just as God did from his, right? He worked 6 days. He created the world in 6 days. And on the seventh day, he rested. And I love this verse. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. Make every effort. It isn't always this easy thing for us to do. But make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience. They're going back to a work salvation. We've been set free. We've been brought into the place of rest and peace because Jesus did it on the cross for us. And when he calls us to be yoked to him, he calls us to the place of rest and peace for our souls. And he describes his yoke there at the end. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If it's burdensome to you, then there's something wrong. If you're struggling with worry, then I would say it's time for you to come to Jesus and be free of that. And this is something I've had to learn. And I have to often say, Jesus, teach me how to not worry. Jesus, teach me how to not strive. Because this isn't natural for me. And that's the point of learning. I love that he says, come on, I'll teach you about this life. I'll teach you about how this is. Can you imagine being a Jewish person with thousands of years of living under this law and Jesus saying, well, just come to me and rest. Be free of all of that. This is going to be mind-blowing for them. How do you do that? They've only known one way, and some of you have only known one way. And Jesus is opening the door to say, there's another way for you today. Come and be at rest. I think it's the reminder, if you think of animals that are being yoked together, are they being yoked together so they can stay in one place? So they can just stand there and look pretty? No. It's so that they can walk together, right? They're going somewhere. They've got a job, a mission to accomplish. And so when we are being yoked to Jesus, it's because he's taking you somewhere. And what we tend to forget is that this is not our final resting place. This is not our final home. We are people of pilgrimage. In Psalm 84, we're going to conclude with this because we're going to leave time for altar this morning. But in Psalm 84, the whole passage is beautiful. But this has been a life verse for me because I am a rooter. I like to establish roots and rhythms. But my roots and rhythms cannot be driven down into this temporal world. My roots and rhythms are driven down into the kingdom of heaven. And Psalm 84 reminds us in verse 5, blessed are those whose strength is in you. See, worrying is dependent upon me. This is calling us to the blessing of those whose strength is in God, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. What is your heart set on? Is it this temporal life, or is your heart set on pilgrimage? I'm yoked to Jesus because we're going somewhere. Because this life isn't all that's it. This bill is not the end of itself. This kid that's driving me crazy, I often tell the Lord, this one's yours. You deal with him. He's only here because you told me to have him, so he's your problem. Whose hearts are set on pilgrimage as they pass through the valley of Baca, the valley of weeping. Can I say again, your life does not have to be perfect and trouble-free. The context of Psalm 84 is the valley of weeping. Does this sound like a valley you want to be in? No. Nobody's like, oh, come to my valley of weeping. No, you're going to look for a trail around the valley of weeping because it has been named for some purpose because there's been weeping, right? Blessed are those that pass through the valley of Baca. They make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools. There are things that will stop up springs. There are things that will turn pools of water into nasty, stinky places. And I would say to you today that worry is one of those. It is very hard to drink of the living waters of Christ if worry is stopping up the springs. The reason that our valley of weeping can become places of springs of life is because we do not walk through our troubles alone. We walked yoked to Jesus. And when we have worry that is suffocating the life out of us, it is hard for us to see and know the living presence of Jesus in the trouble with us. But he wants to be in your trouble. He wants to be in the place that you are right now worrying about. He wants to be there. He doesn't want you walking in it alone. You may not wake up tomorrow morning and everything is perfect. It doesn't matter. You have his presence with you. You can walk through anything. You have his presence with you. And I believe in his presence in such a way. And I say this to you all the time. I'm not diminishing your worry. I'm not diminishing your trouble. I am telling you how big Jesus is. I'm telling you how powerful Jesus is, and he wants to be in your worry. He has called for you to be yoked to him, to bring your burdens. They go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. When you walk through the valley of weeping, yoked to Jesus, instead of becoming bitter and frustrated and disillusioned, you will, as you journey through yoked, you will become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until you appear before God. And I am convinced that the greatest evangelistic tool that we have is when people watch you walking through your valley of weeping with the presence of Jesus. I'm convinced that there's no greater way to tell people about Jesus than when they see you. Wait a minute, I know this is happening in your life. Why are you at peace? Why are you not bitter? Why are you not wounded? Because I have the living bread. I have the living water. Because Jesus in my valley of weeping has made it a place of springs. He has covered my valley of weeping with pools of water because I have yoked myself to him and have said no to worry. You will not defile my springs. You will not worry, defile my relationship. You will not worry, get me unyoked from Jesus. You don't get that power in my life. You don't get that place in my life. I have discovered the one that gives rest to my weary soul. Take hope, my friend. Take hope. Take hope today. Jesus has called you into this relationship that he wants for you to be full of joy unspeakable. He wants you, when it doesn't make sense, how do you have peace that surpasses understanding? It doesn't make sense to have peace in light of that doctor report. It doesn't make sense. But I know the one who lives. I've yoked myself to him. And once I've yoked myself to him, there can be no going back. I've experienced his life. And some of you today, and listen, there's no shame here. There's no shame. If you've been yoked to worry, because any of us that have been worriers, we've walked this and we've had to learn to walk free of it. And my tendency will be to go back to that worry. And when I do, I have to say, wait a minute. Am I being yoked to Christ right now? Or have I yoked myself to this trouble? And this is why I take communion all the time, because it reminds me of what I'm yoked to. I'm not yoked to this world and the way this world deals with problems. I'm yoked to Jesus. And for some of us here today, maybe you're saying, it's been suffocating me. I've been waking up at night. I haven't had sleep. And I want to say that Jesus gives sleep. He gives peace. And he wants to get into your valley with you today. And so the worship team is going to come back up this morning. And we're just going to make room. Now, these were all action words today, weren't they? They are saying, wait a minute, we're going to stop the action of worry and we're going to come to Jesus. We're going to take up his yoke. We're going to learn from him, and we're going to find rest. And sometimes that takes you taking physical action of moving to him. The place at the altar is the place where we unburden ourselves. We all joke about the camping, and when I went camping, and they all like to talk about me because I talked about the food pack, remember, and how heavy it was. And as soon as I had preached about that, Alexandra was like, Mom, you took a burden that wasn't supposed to be yours. We had said that you weren't supposed to carry the food pack, but you did it anyway. That was not your burden to bear. I was like, okay, well, I didn't put that in my sermon. When I was carrying that pack, though, we were going uphill, and it was hot. And when I got to the top of that hill, I literally was hiking like this because the food pack was so heavy. That's when I said, if we ever do this again, we're only taking freeze-dried food. But I'm walking like this, and the girls are already at the top waiting for me. And I walk up, and I'm throwing that off of me. I threw the pack off, and I think I threw my sweatshirt off, and I was a beeline for the lake. As I'm walking into the lake, Alexandra's handing me a bag of gummy bears. Here, you need sugar, she said. And I just dove into that lake. Listen, there's some of you today, you're carrying a heavy load. And you need to come to the altar, and you need to throw that. I was not going to carry that one step further than what I had to. Man, I was like, get this off of me. I said to them, get this off of me. And some of you today need to do that. And you need to head straight for the living waters of Jesus so he can refresh you and restore you. And so I'm going to ask us to all just stand. The team is going to lead us here in some worship. And this morning, if this is you, and listen, again, this is where we're part of this. This is a safe community. And we've all had to throw off our burdens at some point or another. And so we're in this with you. We want to meet you at the top of that hill and say, yeah, let's get that pack off. Let's do whatever we got to do and get that off of you. That's what the body of Christ is for today. And we want to pray with you and do that. And so as the team leads us, I want you to be bold, take a step out and say, I'm done. I'm done with this load. I'm tired of carrying it. I'm going to get yoked to Jesus. If that's you, I want you to right now just begin to come as the team leads. Come on now. Don't let the load keep you. Loads want to keep you from moving your feet. And you got to move your feet and say no to that load. If that's you.